that I've seen on my tours is that the call to responsibility has become somewhat of a clarion call. And, you can see the Marxists and the environmental types as well capitalizing on the attractiveness of responsibility and destiny to some degree by offering these utopian schemes as a sort of messianic alternative to the enemy of liberalism. Let's put it that way. The conservative approach seems to me to be something more like, what would you call it? The pursuit of responsibility in humble micro domains, at least to begin with, right? So that to set yourself right, you should try to set your family relationships right, and maybe to establish a family. And having established a certain degree of harmony and functionality in your family, then maybe you could extend out a few tentacles into the surrounding civic community, and you could build from the bottom up. You could build a stable life and a stable social life, and then a stable political life, let's say, from the bottom up. One of the things that I've been heartened by is the fact that if you lay out those arguments to young people, you say, look, you need to be embedded in a social surround and you need to take responsibility for it. The reason you need that is because that's where you're going to find the purpose of your life. That sounds to me like an echo of this biblical insistence that there actually is something for human beings to do, as long as they don't bite off more than they can chew and get all prideful about it.
You said maybe start a family. So this might be controversial with some of your viewers, but in the Jewish version of the biblical tradition, in the Jewish tradition, the starting a family is an obligation that everyone who can do it must do it.
Right.
And if you think about that in terms of the responsibility issue, young Orthodox Jews are raised to believe that if you don't take on this responsibility, if you as a young man, if you don't make it your business to find a wife and to have children and to do what it takes to create a stable structure, you're going to be for your entire life unable to understand what it actually takes in order to create human order. I mean, the various people have noticed that that many of the European leaders are unmarried and don't have children, and the situation in which young people don't learn how to. They don't learn how to govern. They don't learn how to be a king and a queen in their own homes. They don't know how to govern a family. They don't know how to hold it together, despite the incredible pain and difficulties that often takes place between men and women. And children are they're sometimes fun, but they're sometimes incredibly difficult, incredibly painful to raise. This whole concept that every young man and woman who can do it must take the responsibility to bring life into the world, to create the world anew, to try to build up on the basis of what's been inherited, to try to make it better than what it was in previous generations. That view, I think in many ways, that's like the bedrock Jewish and Christian view, which says, we're not slaves to the gods. We're partners in creating this world, but that means we have an obligation to do the act of creation. And the most fundamental act of creation is creating a family. Once you've done that, then you were hinting to this. Then I think you can also learn to create congregations, to uphold nations. All of that flows from the first step of very young people taking responsibility for creating, basically their own little world in a family.
Well, there is no more profound responsibility than that. And so it's an initiation into profound responsibility. I mean, one of the things that happens to a parent and I think it's very difficult for this to happen if you don't become a parent, is that once you're a parent, there is definitely someone in your life who's more important than you are. Right? So your orientation to the world, well, I would say it matures properly. And it matures under the force of moral obligation, fundamentally. You have this person now who's, for better or worse, almost entirely dependent on your not so tender mercies, you and your wife, and who's subject to all of your trials and tribulations and inadequacies. And if you have any sense at all, that wakes you up as much as anything will. And without that, I think it's very difficult to shed the constraints of hedonistic adolescence. It's not good for people. It's not good for people. If
you just
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly true. I think as you said, you can't in a lot of ways you can't actually mature until you've created and are the government of a household. And the alternative that sort of mainstream liberalism gives us, this view that when you reach 18 or 20 years old, you're a rational individual, and now you can do whatever you want. You can, and usually doing whatever you want. We can see in young people that doing whatever you want means that they get too scared to get married. They get too scared to have children. Even I'm talking about something that even affects Orthodox religious communities. You can see it very, very clearly that they look at these responsibilities as a kind of with terrible fear, as though it's like an enslavement, something they need to spend another 5 years and another 10 years and another 5 years, get more degrees. They need to keep preparing in order to be ready to do it, and that's the opposite of the traditional view that says take the responsibility and then live up to it. You'll grow by living up to it. You'll become a complete person. As the rabbis say, you complete yourself by taking the responsibility of marriage and children. And the alternative is adolescence that's extended forever. What you think that when you're 35 years old and now you're going to start looking to get married, it's going to be easier to get married. You'll actually be more capable of it than you were when you were 23. I don't think that's true at all. I think what you learn during those extra 10 or 15 years of adolescence is to just care for yourself instead of to learn how to create something.